flying to follow you, desecrate my mind and rely on you. I just wanna break this crown, but it's hard when I'm so run down. And you're so cynical, narcissistic, cannibal. Got to bring myself back from
I'm so tired. I don't think I'm gonna make it.
Sometimes I hate.
Got someplace to go.
Now this lady is the lead in Beyond Two Souls. She plays Jodie Holmes over 15 years of her life. That's an epic undertaking for any performer. But she's also another Academy Award nominated star, having featured the likes of Juno, Inception and Super. Please put your hands together for Ellen Page. Yes, Super. And finally, this man has dedicated 16 years of his professional life to pushing boundaries of storytelling in video games. His studio's last game, Heavy Rain, garnered widespread acclaim and 3 BAFTA Video Game Awards. And with Beyond Two Souls, it looks like the boundaries between gaming and cinematic narrative are to become even more blurred. It's David Cage. Thank you all for joining us. David, I believe you have a few words for us before we carry on.
I would just like to welcome you guys to our motion capture studio. I mean, I know it's a strange venue for an event like this, but this is where the magic happened.
Hi, yeah, one for Kadeem and Willem and Ellen. You touched on it briefly, but can you speak a bit more about what your relationship with video games was up until you started work on Beyond, and whether your perception of what video games were changed after you finished your work?
Okay, well, I played video games when I was like a kid and I loved them. So I guess the original Nintendo would have been the first thing. So Super Mario and Duck Hunt and stuff. And then was a big Sega Genesis fan. So Sonic and the Aladdin game and NHL, loved NHL, like NHL 94. I'm from Canada, okay? And then the first PlayStation I loved. And so, but then that stopped when I was about 16. And so it would really have been about almost 10 years since I had experienced video games and like played Heavy Rain again or started wrapping my head around it. So there was this like huge, technological gap. So just to experience that, because, I might have seen like a friend playing Xbox, but like that was literally all in that period. So that was mind-blowing to see. And then to hear about what David was doing and hearing about the sort of evolution of games becoming, sort of more emotional and having more of, for lack of a better word, like a cinematic narrative to it, was just, fascinating, and also a little bit like, oh, of course.
Kadeem, I get a sense that 10-year gap didn't exist for you.
Yeah, no, I've been playing games since I think games were invented, and what was the question? I'm sorry.
I guess, what was your relationship with games up until Beyond, and then whether your experience working on Beyond changed your perception of games?
This has just furthered my love for them. I've been playing games since Pong, since in television, since before she was born. Doing this just kind of let me see behind the curtain, but in a good way, not in a way that ruins it at all. Sometimes you read a script, or you read a script for a movie you're gonna audition for, and you don't want to finish it because it feels really good. And it's like, well, if I don't get the part, I just want to see the movie. So the script can kind of ruin it for you. With this, I wanted to know everything. I spent as much time here as I would across the hall at the other spot where the guys were coding and doing music and doing art. And I would always go over and peek over shoulders and look at monitors. And I just love the whole thing. I want to work here. If I can.
You're hired.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm a lover of games, and this has just helped it.
Of course, the benefit of this as well, you've got 23 endings to not spoil.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Exactly. I'm not talking about any part of the Heavy Rain I've already spoiled. Yeah, I've done my part.
Okay, anyone else? Yes, this gent here.
this one's for the actors. How does it feel to record hours of dialogue and acting and footage when some gamers may not get to actually see it because of the alternate endings and decisions and choices?
We're used to making movies where sometimes scenes get cut, shots get cut, whole characters get cut. I mean, it's, there's a real easy parallel there. You know, you generate material, you serve an idea, and then they enter into another stage. Sometimes you're involved in that, sometimes you aren't. And that other stage, they use that material. And your hope is what you made, what you contributed in this process has an integrity and has something that they can work with, and that's all you can hope for. But you have to kind of accept it's going to be something else, and I think if you hang on to it too much, it'll affect what you're doing from the very start.
Yeah, and I find it so interesting. Like I don't think you think about it, or I just find it so interesting that, you know, the choices that people are going to make, and because sometimes we'd be doing things and I would just be like, who would make this choice? You know, who would make this choice? And it was so interesting talking to David and hearing about, you know, percentages of people that made the sort of very, very specific, major, ethical, intense, moral choices in Heavy Rain, and to hear about how that, to hear about, you know, kind of, you know, what came of that, and so to me, if anything, that just makes it even more interesting, because I'm just like, there's certain times in the game where I'm just fascinated to think of, like, who in their right mind makes that choice.
In fact, when I think about it, it relates to something that David said before. This is so written and so constructed that I never even thought about stuff being cut, because while there are variations, there are a lot of working parts, and it's so designed and so planned that probably less than a traditional movie did I think, that's never going to make the cut.
I think to Ellen's point of who would make that decision, welcome back to video games. And one last question, we've just got time for one last one, which I believe goes to that gentleman at the front in the blue jacket.
To Ellen and Willem, you acted in films like Spider-Man and Inception. What's the difference in acting or shooting Beyond Two Souls? Is it harder or easier or similar to that, or what's the difference?
Do you mean in terms of working in effects-heavy movies?
Yeah, because they're both motion capture movies, and what's the difference between this?
You want to go?
Yeah, I mean, with Inception, it's different because you shoot very little every day. So just so for that basic thing is very different. Here we're doing, you know, you're not having set changes, the camera's not turning around, and on a movie like Inception, whereas sometimes, a lot of the time, if you're just shooting a scene with actors, Chris Nolan actually shoots, you know, very quickly, mostly handheld, him and Wally, you know, set up shots, and it's actually a very organic, intimate process. But then, of course, there's days where hallways are going upside down and people are floating and you're in a truck and it's flipping and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and those days take much, much longer. What's interesting about Chris and amazing about him, you know, is that most of the stuff he does is actually very tangible and real. I might have been in front of a green screen twice briefly, but I guess the similarity of it would be the excitement of seeing it come together. You know, the excitement of thinking, wow, this like fake wave machine that I'm walking out of in Morocco is gonna end up looking like, you know, coming out of the ocean into a falling dreamscape. And then like the excitement, just as a person, getting to go and experience that with everybody else for the first time. And I feel like that sort of delight is like the same thing that I feel with this. And just the gratitude to be a part of something, because again, you feel like a very, very tiny, tiny, tiny piece of the puzzle.
For me, Spider-Man, there was some green screen, not as much as you'd think. There was a lot of just mechanical things. I mean, a lot of flying, a lot of ratchets, you know, a lot of technical, just physical stunt stuff. There wasn't any mocap in that. Now, John Carter, I did lots of mocap on. Everything was mocap. But the difference was, in that mocap experience, everything was around you, and it was also filmed conventionally at the same time. They were collecting all the necessary technical information, but they were shooting it like a regular movie, which was actually very interesting. In this case, you didn't have any of the elements, clearly. It was this room, you know, smaller than it is right now. David would be sitting, and David and some other people would be sitting at a table maybe halfway back, right? Quite a small space with nothing in it. Sometimes, I agree with Ellen, I've never saw anything this elaborate in that space. There was, it was a different mocap experience because everything, you know, you had to imagine. And of course you embrace that, and then it becomes liberating because you don't have any distractions. You only have the other actors to play with and the scene and the intentions of the scene. And when you're working very fast, without camera setups, without lighting adjustments, you can cover a lot of ground. You get in a rhythm, you get tired, you get challenged, you get fluid, interesting things happen.
I'm so tired. I don't think I'm gonna make it.
Sometimes I hate
Got someplace to go?
everything is wrong every time. Pushing on, I can't escape. Everything that comes my way is haunting me, taking its sweet time.
Kadeem Hardison.
You use me to do your dirty work!
Ellen, it's so great to have you here tonight. Thank you also for coming.
So many people here.
Yeah, it's quite impressive.
Bonsoir à tous, un mot en français avant de passer en anglais. C'est un immense plaisir évidemment d'être ici, donc merci à vous d'être là, et voilà, merci. A bunch of amazing, extremely talented and passionate people, and they make the games. I just talk about them, so this is why you see me all the time, but actually they are the people making the game. Thank you for them.
I'd like to hear your respective takes on their relationship. So Ellen, I mean, how does Jodie perceive Nathan?
Well, I think it's, you know, beautiful relationships in many respects, and also a complicated one, which as you continue to play the game, we'll learn more about. You know, I think Nathan becomes somewhat of a father figure to her. You know, he also represents something in her life that has caused her a lot of pain and difficulty, of being isolated from other children her age and having such a strange way of growing in the world. So it definitely leads to some interesting conflict and complication as the story continues.
And Willem, where do you stand on that relationship?
I think she did pretty well given your taste, and to say any more kind of, I always feel like I'm giving away the game if I say anything.
It's always the danger with David's games, isn't it? And just to illustrate that, we've got a brief clip, I believe, which shows Ellen and Willem in action. So this is you guys in the motion capture studio that we were in earlier today. Does this bring back fond memories?
Yeah, sure.
This is the introduction of the condenser scene that you saw. It's the dialogue between, it's the party, I think. No, it's the party. It's the introduction of the party where she's shy and she doesn't know if she wants to go. But this is much later in the story. There are many scenes of confrontations between Ellen and Willem that were just amazing to see and to direct. So it was a real pleasure.
I give up!